Hello, I would like to welcome everybody to today's webinar showing you bonzai3d. Allow me to introduce myself real quick. My name is Marcus Bonn. I'm Vice President of Development here at Autodesk. I also do quite a few other things, among other things, obviously, here presenting bonzai3d to you. Let me just give you a quick overview of what it is that I'm trying to show you today. This will be an architectural project I'll be demonstrating. I'll try to do a complete design of a building from scratch, all the way from the beginning, starting with nothing to something that hopefully resembles somewhat of a building. The focus of this demo is really on showing you how to sketch in 3D, how to use the sketching power of Bonsai. And this then allows me to show you, for example, how to evaluate the design as it progresses, making changes, really become an active designer in the process. And doing so, really hoping to show you the power of 3D solid modeling in bonzai3d and show you how easy it really is to sculpt complex forms with this new 3D modeler that we have here at Autodesk. Let me also maybe give you a quick preview of what's coming up next week. We will have another architectural example. My colleague John will be recreating an existing design, a Calatrava opera house in Valencia, and he will explore a few other components and aspects of Bonsai, among others rapid prototyping, 3D printing, for example, and why Bonsai is really good at that. For those of you who have never seen or heard of Bonsai, or just a little bit, maybe go over the basics of what it is real quick. It is a conceptual modeler. It allows you to sketch directly in 3D, but it's more than just conceptual. It actually allows you to be quite accurate at the same time, and as my demo goes on, I'll point out some of these features. It allows you to create 3D solid objects and surfaces, of course, but 3D solid modeling is really the core of the modeler. It's really the base for allowing you to create robust 3D geometry that you can then take further. For example, it is really the foundation for good 3D printing processes, among other things. And of course, 3D solid modeling itself opens up the possibility for many really cool, interesting tools, such as Boolean operations. So enough of that. Before I get started, I'd also like to go over a few logistics. So the demonstration itself will take about 20 to 30 minutes, depending how fast I really go. And let me maybe turn the screen on so you have actually a view of Bonsai as it is, starting straight out of the box. So the demo itself will last about 20 to 30 minutes. So you will be seeing exactly what I see on the screen here in front of me. The actual interactivity may look a little rough and choppy. That's not Bonsai. That's really the limitation of the broadcast speed itself. So just bear with me on that. Just imagine that things actually happen nice and smooth. Once the demonstration is over, we will go to a question and answer session. In the GoToWebinar control panel, you will have a questions tab, a question section. So you can type your question in there, and I will read the questions and try to answer them as best as I can at this point. I will try to get to all the questions that are there. If for some reason I can't answer the question because I just don't have the knowledge at this point, we will get it all resolved. We'll just get back to you with an email later on. And the whole session will also be recorded, so you can actually go back later and recall that in form of a video that is available on our website, on the webinar page. Okay, so having said all that, let's get started. So all of you should see the bonzai3d screen right in front of you as it is, coming straight out of the box. And with any project that I start from scratch, I need to ask myself first, how big is it that is the object of the project that I'm building roughly? So in order to set the world size, I usually start with going into this project settings environment that in the working units tab allows me to determine how big my world is. And in this case, I'm doing a building, but I could, for example, do something smaller or larger. So I'm going to leave this as the default, but just to show you that this is really the first thing we should be doing. The other thing I'm turning on down here is grid snapping. So while I'm creating shapes, it will snap to these intervals, and this of course is somewhere in the neighborhood of the size and the modularity of your design. So I'm setting this to 6 inches. Okay, so let me start a drawing with a basic shape here on the reference plane seen by the grid. I'll be snapping to 6-inch grid intervals. So just clicking, and you see these red and green lines. Those are called guidelines that help me line up my input shapes geometrically. I'm clicking back at the first point, closes the shape, and now I extrude this straight in 3D. One more click, and we're done. So one of the things Bonsai does right away is once you're done drawing or creating a shape, you still have access to some of the parameters you just did. For example, if I didn't like the height, I can go back here and grab that arrow and change it. You can even move the points you just clicked. And all this information is also available here in the tool options palette. So you can mix and match graphic modification and also type numbers if you choose to do so. Okay, let's look at a few other tools. So this was just drawing a basic shape. And maybe I want to create a little wall here on the side of this base. So I'm using the offset tool. I'll be using offsetting quite a bit here. So I'm just selecting a sequence of segments and offset this parallel. So this will go inward, zooming in a little bit, and you can see actually the numeric value, how far the offset is right below my mouse. Click, and this now has split that top face into 2 faces. And with the reshape tool, another tool I'll be using a lot here, I can now take this one portion and just move it straight up. Again, you see numeric control, or you can just use the mouse to define that. Let me also maybe spin around here to the other side and take that portion of the wall and move it back a little bit, like this maybe. Okay. Let's move on and create a few more basic shapes here. Back to the drawing tool. And as I'm drawing, you can see I have a reference plane available. By default, it's the XY plane on the world. But if I move my mouse on top of another surface, you can see that the reference plane automatically adjusts itself to that surface. So for example, if I wanted to draw here on this wall sideways, all I do is just click on the reference plane and it will draw now on that surface. Undo that. That's not really what I wanted to do, just wanted to show you how easy it is to adjust that reference plane. So in this case, I'll just adjust the reference plane here to the top of the base and draw directly on that. Snapping to existing geometry is easy, and then just move that up in 3D. Okay. Next, let's modify this a little bit, back to offsetting and reshaping. Now I'll just offset one edge here, straight towards the middle, and using snaps. You can see the little green dot here in the middle identifies the midpoint of that one edge. So I just snap to that, and I've just split the top face into 2 equal parts. So here's another offsetting tool, the offset outline. This will actually take all the edges of a face and offset those parallel, like that. That's very easy, for example, to create roof structures, these soffits. 1 foot in, use the reshape tool to grab that and move it straight up, something like that. So let's quickly explore solid modeling a little bit. What does it mean to be a solid? One way to visualize this very quickly is using clipping planes in Bonsai. So I'm creating a plane that will cut open the model. And as you can see, as I move this clipping plane, my massing here is still solid all the way through, as is the base. So I'll be using these clipping planes on and off during the design just to take a peek on the inside. Let me turn this back off and hollow out this one structure over here. Let me also just isolate this one feature. And there's a nice command here called isolate objects that gets rid of everything else except for what's picked. So I can focus really on this one part of the design. And again, we'll quickly use offsetting and reshaping to create a wall here in 1 foot with the entire face, and then just move it straight up. And you can see I can create the space from the bottom here moving up. I can actually move that bottom all the way through, so I would cut through the roof, but I'm just stopping at about 15 feet or so. Okay, let's turn the other objects back on, reveal them, and here they are. Double check real quick with our clipping plane. And you can see now I have a nice hollow space. Okay, let's continue to sculpt this a little bit more. You can also draw directly on sides, as we've seen earlier. But as we draw, we can also use the shape that is drawn to sculpt. So for example, I wanted to create a really big opening in here. I could move this outward, or as I'm moving this back into the design, you can see it actually subtracts its shape from that structure. Like that. How about getting away from just rectangular pieces for just a moment? Let's put an arched opening here in the back. So again, let's adjust our reference plane, and with just the same drawing tools here, I can create just about any kind of shape. Maybe a combination of straight lines. Move to the arc drawing tool. Like that. Back to straight line. Double click and extrude straight back, and we have created a nice arched opening. Okay, let's maybe add a little balcony to that. Again, I'll be using offsetting and reshaping for that. Let's start by offsetting this bottom face here, and then extrude that straight out. Use the offset segment to create a new face in here and reshape that straight up. Something like this maybe. How about a handrail? There's maybe some wires on the side. And that allows me to show you our transformation tools. I use the move tool here with a combination of copying. So I can make a number of multiple copies, for example, of just one edge. So I grab that edge and then copy it along the side, and I get, in this case, I selected 6 copies of that. Again, snapping allows me to line these things up precisely. So click on the segment, snap to the start point, and snap to the end point, and voila. Okay, let's add a few more elements in here. Back to my basic drawing. So you've seen how to draw straight extrusions. We can also draw 3D walls directly. This happens in the same fashion, so I adjust my reference plane and snap to points and start drawing. So I'm starting to draw that wall, snap to the endpoint of the wall here. And let me get away again from just rectangular shapes or linear shapes. How about a nice spline curve here? So here are the control points of this spline. You add a guide here that allows me to line up things precisely. And back to a straight line. Double click and then extrude it straight up, snap to the existing opening height, and we have created this this wall. Again, you see it's in orange, which means I can make changes to that. I could change the height if I wanted to. We go to a top view and look at this wall a little closer. You can see that the wall was drawn around, centered around the line that I was clicking on. So I would like this to be centered in a different adjustment. Left justified, in this case, right justified should be the proper way to do that. Again, of course, I can go back to some of the points that I clicked, maybe fine tune the shape of this wave part of the wall here. That looks good. Okay. Now let's add some openings into this, sculpt some windows into that. Again, I'll start by offsetting the offset outline. Go in a certain distance, maybe on these 3 surfaces over here. And then with reshaping, turn these into openings. And of course, reshape, since these are solids, I can go all the way through the other side. So it's very easy to create a pair of openings on opposing walls to line up precisely. Just push it all the way through. Of course, you can also use the same tool to then adjust the size of the opening, and again, using snapping, it makes it easy, for example, to line up one size of the opening with another feature of the model here, just snapped to the corner on the other side. Okay, how about an opening in the curved wall? We can do the same thing, just a few different steps. Oops. We zoom in, and I'll start by offsetting again. So offsetting really is a great tool because you can just use existing geometry and keep working with it. So I'm just creating a parallel copy of that one bottom edge here. And I'll use the line break tool to clip off the end. So I just break this apart right here and right there. And I will delete the small pieces that I have clipped off. You will see in a second why we did this. And with the 3D wall tool, where I create a 3D wall from existing geometry, I'll create a thick wall and I'll extrude this straight up. So if we go to a top view, you'll see that this wall is sitting outside exactly parallel. So now with the arrow here, I can of course change the thickness, and I'll make this wall go straight through the existing wall. So now this is an exact perpendicular intersection of this new object with the existing wall. And the reason why I did it this way is now I can use the difference Boolean operation to subtract one shape from the other, and I have a perfect right angle wall opening in here. So I could have just stuck a cube through this too, but then the wall here would not have a right angle. Okay, let's put a roof on that too. And again, we'll use existing geometry. We'll derive new shapes from existing one. In this case, I'll make a new shape from all the edges at the top here. So I'll just pick these edges in sequence, and then with the 2D shape tool, it isolates those into one new shape. So here it is. I'll use the close tool on that to add an extra line in the back to turn this into a surface that is now closed, and then use the extrude tool, turn it into a solid, moving it straight up, and again offsetting and reshaping, create the soffit like that. That looks good. Let's also bring the wall back from below. Use the Boolean union tool to merge those two shapes, the wall and the roof itself, into one new object. Okay. Turn the clipping plane on. Let's see how this looks. Just move this forth and back to evaluate your design. Okay, let me turn back off. All right, let's add a few more pieces here. How about a platform there in the middle? Again, I'll adjust my reference plane. Back to the straight extrusion drawing. Snap to the corner. Draw a rectangle. And by the way, this purple line is a diagonal. So if I snap to it, I get an exact square. So no need to be precise with the numbers. Just snapping does this automatically for you. Extrude it up maybe 6 feet. Like this. Okay. Let me also add maybe a circle to that. Again, adjust the reference plane to the top here. Draw a circle by diameter. Snap to existing geometry easily. Extrude it straight down. And here we go. Use the Boolean union tool to make one shape out of those two. All right, now we need some steps to move from the base here to the top of this platform. Again, I'll isolate that object because I want to focus just on it. Use the isolate tool. Isolate objects. Everything else will go away. And one way to do steps would be to draw the steps on the side of this. So again, I'll use the drawing tool, put the reference plane on here. And all I really have to do is just draw one iteration of a step, like that. So one little L-shaped form down here. And we'll use the copy tool again. Let's make enough copy of this one step. Use snapping to align one point with the next, like that. So I have 12 copies of this single step up here. I'll merge all those into one shape with the join tool, join those together into one line. And back here in the palette where I had the reshape and the offset, we have one more interesting tool called the imprint. So this tool, unlike the offset that splits a face by one single edge, this imprint tool splits a face by any kind of two-dimensional shape. So I can split this face with the zigzag line of the step, which then I can use the reshape tool, of course, take that part of the steps and move it straight back, for example. Okay, let's bring the other objects back. See how this looks in context. Great. How about a set of stairs here that curls around the curve of the platform and moves up to this structure here? Let me start by offsetting again. So I can use these two edges here, offset those out parallel, like that. And these controls that you saw earlier in the orange objects actually can be recalled at any point of time. So if an object has controls, simply click on the Show Controls menu item as you pick the object, and it will give you whatever controls are applicable. In this case, I can change the angle of the arc, for example. I only want a 90-degree curve over here. And when you're done working with the controls, just turn them back off. So now we have a nice path, and along this path we can create a stair. So this automatically for you computes the steps for the given height. Here are all the parameters on the right, and I don't even want you to understand all these parameters, just to show you that I can now, for example, change the justification to be right justified, maybe change the width graphically, or of course you could type it in the width field over here. Maybe change the height of the steps up here, snap to the existing geometry to line it up precisely. Okay. That's as simple as it is to create a stair. Let's also create a little opening in here so we don't have to jump over the wall to get up in here. Extrude one face, make it thicker by using the reshape tool so that it goes clearly through the wall here. And use Boolean operations one more time to subtract one shape from the other. So that cuts the opening in here. Great. How about some handrails here too? So we'll create maybe a handrail first, or a wall around the side of the steps here. Let me start by drawing a simple profile. So just the cross section of this wall, maybe a 6-inch wide rectangle like that. That looks good. And let me also draw just a straight line right here. That will serve as an axis, because now I can use the solid helix tool. So the solid helix takes any cross section in two-dimensional in nature and spins it around an axis. So you get this kind of Guggenheim style shape. The default parameters here give us exactly 2 revolutions. Here's the angle, 2 cycles. In our case, we only need 90 degrees, so I'm typing 90 over here. That gives me, 90, sorry. 90 degrees, that gives me a quarter arc effectively. And the height is, of course, easy to adjust with the control here. Just snap to the last step here, and we have our final shape. And of course, you can still make changes even to the cross section. You want this handrail to be a little taller, just grab it and move it up, or maybe make it wider, grab the point down here, like that. I'll just keep it at the original shape like that. Okay. And on this side, of course, we maybe want to extend that wall all the way down to the base using the extend tool. That takes any face and extends it to any other face, like that. Let's complete the wall over here by creating an extrusion from the end face. So we'll grab that face, extrude it straight out, snap to the corner. And down here, of course, we want to slope it, so I can use the move tool and move just one edge. So I'll grab that edge down here. Let me zoom in. Oops, just the edge. And snap it to the top. And here's the outside wall for the stairs. Good, let's maybe delete the axis here and also put a wall here on the platform. Offsetting will do the job initially, just in maybe 6 inches. Use the reshape tool to grab that wall and reshape it up. Maybe 3 feet and 6 inches. We can get rid of the back portion here. We don't need a wall. Just use reshape to subtract that. And here where the steps come up, we need to get rid of that portion of the wall. Just again reshape it exactly the thickness of the wall. All right. Let's also put a wall here down the side of the stairs. Again, a combination of extruding and reshaping will allow us to do that. So first extrude it straight out, pick that face, creates this new L shape. I don't really need the bottom here, so we'll reshape that away. And then with the move tool, I'll grab the end face here and just move it straight down to give it the slope. Use the Boolean union tool that allows us to merge two solid objects into one solid to get rid of the overlapping part here. Great. One more step left to do is to slope also this part of the wall here. We first break that top face. I need to have a segment right here. This is where the wall will bend, so we'll use the offsetting to do that. Just grab that segment back here and offset it right here. Use the snap to go to that point. And then we can use the move tool to move that straight up. Here we go. Great. Okay. Maybe one more quick structure here at the top. Let's put a little pavilion on top of this. Back to my drawing tools. Draw a 3D wall directly, just like I did earlier. And adjust our reference plane up here. Again, snapping to the purple line makes it exactly square. Move it up maybe 12 feet. Let's put a little roof on that. Again, we'll adjust the reference plane to this new surface. Snap to the corners. Go up. I could now drag the arrows to create a little overhang. Let me just type in this case, just easier. Type the new dimension, so create a 2-foot overhang by changing the 16-foot dimension to 20 feet over here. Great. How about a little cylindrical roof shape here? So I'm drawing an arc right on the side here. So we'll set the reference plane to be on this surface. Draw an arc, snap to the middle, to the end, close that shape, and extrude it straight back. That's not really quite what I had in mind. It's a little too big. Looks like a mushroom up here. So we'll use the on-screen controls maybe to scale this down a little bit. That looks better. And make another copy of that by rotating this shape. Click to the center here. Use the on-screen controls to snap to 90-degree intervals. And with the Boolean tool one more time, you can make one object out of all these 3 components. This one and this one now. Okay. Again, we could turn our clipping plane on just to get a preview what that section looks like. So of course I wanted to hollow this out. This needs to be a nice barrel vault of some sort. So let me turn my clipping plane back off and let's do that next. Again, I'll start offsetting. So I'll make a parallel copy of this one edge to the inside, maybe 1 foot. Same thing over here. And then use reshaping. Take that resulting face that was split and just push it all the way through. And the same thing on this side. And these are Boolean operations that are happening here interactively. You can see that it creates the proper intersection and vault structure here for us. While we're at it, let's also extend that wall up to the underside of that new structure. So first I'll just extend it all the way through temporarily. And then use the Boolean operations one more time by subtracting one shape from the other. So I can take the wall and subtract the roof from it. So that cuts this into 2 separate pieces. The top one I just delete. I'll bring the roof back. That now fits precisely on top of the wall. Okay, let's also add some quick openings in here. Maybe a semicircular window up in here. Again, offsetting derives a parallel line. And close that into a semicircular closed shape. We'll extrude that into a solid object that goes all the way through. I'll also make a copy of this by rotating it. Snap to the center up here. Rotate it 90 degrees by snapping to my guidelines. And Boolean one more time. these two shapes from the wall, and I have created these openings. And of course the openings can also be drawn directly, as you saw earlier with the insert. Actually, there's one more drawing mode where the opening is drawn as we, or created as we drawing. So for example, I can draw directly on here. Let me also show you that it's quite easy to get relative coordinate readouts. So currently the X, Y, and Z values up here represent the position of the mouse in 3D space. If I wanted to know how far away I am from the lower left corner, for example, I change this to the plane readout, and now it is relative to this origin of the reference plane, and which, by the way, can be moved anywhere. So if you want to offset this exactly 2 feet from the lower left edge, just place your mouse, watch the readout, and then go from there. So, and you can see that the opening is created as I'm drawing right away, like that. And you can even make this go all the way through the object. So maybe you want to create another opening here that spans all the way across. You can do that too, like that. You can see it went all the way to the other side. Okay, and that's basically the design. Let me maybe show you a few more features here. Maybe quickly to put the clipping plane on. Just look at the section. And by the way, the clipping planes can also be rotated. So if you like to look at this from the other side, you can of course do that too. Or maybe in a plan view, just rotate it horizontally, and then adjust the height by going straight down. Something like that. Okay. All right, let's put a few textures on here. Just a little bit of visualization here. So far everything has been done really in just one solid color. Let me create a few quick textures. So here's a material, double click on that, gives you that material. Initially it's a solid color, and Bonzai comes with a large library of different predefined materials you can choose from. Many of those are texture based. So let me go maybe to the stone category and choose a nice stone pattern for one of the surfaces. This one looks good, and maybe one more for the roof. And there's a roof category with different roof textures, shingles, maybe a standing seam roof, like this. Let me close that real quick. And to assign such a material, just drag and drop it right on top of a surface. Maybe these three, this one, and this one. And the same thing for the roof up here. One over here. Like that. Okay. Now it is actually quite easy to adjust the size of these textures. So maybe this texture, while it has some default size, appears a little bit too small on the floor, on the ground here. So I'm using my texture editing tool that allows you to interactively move this texture around, size it, just grab the arrows, make it as big as it needs to be, just visually. You could even line this up precisely if you wanted to. The origin of the texture snaps to geometry and can even be rotated. Maybe you want the stone pattern to run parallel to the diagonal wall here. So just rotate it and snap it exactly. And of course you have complete numeric control over this. On the right side here you can see the exact size of how big one iteration of that texture is in world space. So if you wanted to adjust another texture over here, you could of course do it graphically and watch the numbers till it's about the same size, which I think was about 14 feet. Of course, you can just do it numerically altogether. Just type the number and hit return, and it does it for you automatically. And in the same fashion, we can even change the texture on curved surfaces. You can see Bonzai automatically wrapped that flat texture in a kind of a cylindrical fashion along these faces. So we can adjust the location and even the size of that in a cylindrical space. Something like that. Okay. And last not least, let's maybe put a nice background on here on our design. Changing different display modes up here. So one display mode that I've been working in so far is called the shaded work mode. It illuminates your model all the time properly, kind of like you're having a flashlight sitting on the camera. No matter how you spin it, it always shines on your model. In the full shaded mode, we actually take into account actual light sources on here. And Bonzai allows you to define any number of lights. We have an ambient light and a sunlight that's currently shining in here. I'm not going into further detail with that, just to show you that we have this available. And let me also put a different background on here. So we could put a flat image as the background. I can actually have a spherical image, meaning that as I'm spinning my model, I'm looking at the environment. So here's a default texture. Let me maybe load a different one and quickly find such a texture. A nice kind of panoramic image, something that this would look a little bit better in. Something like that. Yes, and that concludes my demonstration today. So yeah, we're about a half hour into the webinar. I'd like now to turn it over to you to post questions.